kind of trying out streaming. I would like to do some live music, maybe some live design, that sort of thing. So yeah, this is just kind of a test. I actually just got this set up this afternoon, and so kind of hoping that maybe sometime tomorrow I'll get it set up so that I can do like some live performances. I would like to do some live piano playing. It's kind of what I like to do. So yeah, so this is more just sort of a test. And let you guys know what I think I plan going forward. This isn't just going to become a streaming channel, obviously. Is this mic level a little low? About that, is that better? Yeah, that might be okay. Alright. Well, I don't really have anything planned. I just kind of wanted to see if anybody happened to notice this and what kind of the response was. I'm personally really excited to start doing some streaming, especially with music. I think that could be quite fun. I don't really plan on doing things like taking requests, although if I get a good request, I might consider it. It's more just going to be kind of fiddling around with some random just like to be a little bit more ambient. Oh, by the way, down here it says live stream of consciousness. That's what I'm going to call a stream. If I do a stream, it's going to be under the live stream of consciousness label. Just kind of separate it a bit from some of my other content. And this seems a little quiet. I'm going to up the gain again. Pardon me. Is that alright? I really want to speak into the mic. Excuse me for a second. Hello? Who's there? I should have checked this before I began. Excuse me for a second. Pardon that. Pardon all the noise. It would seem that I did not have my mic plugged in. That sucks quite a bit. Okay, that sounds good. Pardon that. I should have double-checked my audio settings. It seems as if I did not have my audio going. So, once again, I apologize for that. Okay. Well, just in case the last, 2 minutes of my stream have been incomprehensible, I guess I will go over my preamble again. This is just a quick test stream to see if everything is working. I'm hoping to start doing these a little bit more regularly.
might try and do some live performances of, maybe some toy synths, maybe like my little organ. But I'm also going to try and haul my computer upstairs and do maybe an hour long um, live performance, more of like some slightly more ambient style stuff. I probably wouldn't be taking requests, although if you have a good one, I might do it. That's kind of what I see this format as being. And if you hadn't noticed, I have my little uh, um, don't know what you'd call it. I'm going to be calling this this sort of content live stream of consciousness, because that's kind of the approach that I want to take to it. I kind of just want to do everything off the cuff, and streaming isn't going to become a major focus of mine, I don't think, but it might be something nice to do every once in a while. Um, I don't even know if anybody really cares to do it, but I just thought it might be nice. So, um, I've also considered doing some live streaming sessions of things like graphic design. I would really like to do that. However, I just do not believe that my mid 2015 laptop is up to the challenge. I tried it earlier today, and everything essentially works fine, but there's a decent amount of, I don't want to say, yeah, it's kind of lag in my design program, which makes it just kind of not nice to work in. So I'm going to have to figure that out. I tried reducing my streaming resolution, and that didn't really seem to make any difference, so it's probably a hardware thing. If I was a little bit more rich, I would, of course, invest in a better computer. But that's not really where I'm at right now, so that's going to have to wait. Of course, also, I wouldn't want to be handling a, what is this? It's like the sort of thing that somebody would use on stage, like a church, like a worship leader. I wouldn't want to be using this if I was doing actual sit down and talk sort of stuff super often. So, I realize that this isn't ideal, but like I said, this is just kind of a test. Um, but yeah, I'm just sort of hoping to open the discussion here and see if anybody has any thoughts on this type of content. If there's something that you would like to see me do, certain sort of content that you'd like to see me stream, I would be very excited and open to hearing what you have to say about it. Because, like I said, I'm just starting out. I've never really done any sort of streaming. And I don't really have any point for today's stream. I'm just sort of, like I said, testing out the medium, testing the waters, hoping to hear a little bit of feedback. Trying to think if I can think up some ulterior motive for a stream. If there's something interesting I can tell or show you, I guess I could just talk a little bit about my space. Right now, this is just kind of a temporary basement studio setup. It's kind of just a little L desk right here. I would take down the webcam and show you, but I kind of don't want to mess with it. But yeah, I have a desk, computers right there. I have a couple of little tape machines. Got a Tascam Portastudio right there, Casio SK1. Got a Magnus chord organ right here, which I could technically turn on and play a little bit, but I don't really have a mic set up, and I don't know if you really want to hear an cheap organ performance played through a crappy mic, so I'm probably not going to do that. Oh, I see somebody actually said something. Chat says, "What got you into making the music you make?" Well, I was raised in a musical family. My mom played piano, could play, read by sight read very well. And so she was always playing music in the home. My dad could play some other instruments like the banjo and guitar, that sort of thing. So I grew up in a pretty musical household. We listened to a lot of things like listened to a lot of classical, some Simon and Garfunkel, Fleetwood Mac, that sort of thing. That was kind of my early exposure to music. Oh, and also a lot of Irish music, actually, which I still enjoy quite a bit. I know that that's sort of a divisive genre to a lot of people, but I enjoy it. Um, and so that's kind of what started my interest in music. I started taking, I believe, violin lessons when I was probably 5, I want to say. Um, and I I had some preconceived notion as a child that when you went to a lesson, when you went to learn something, you were going to learn like a new song every time instead of actually learning the knowledge that you needed to, get better what you were doing. So I was always pushing my teacher to teach me new songs each time. And so she never really gave me the knowledge to read music, and so if I was having trouble with a song, as I often would, she would be like, "No, you play it like this," and then I would play along with her, and that's how I kind of developed my ability to play by ear. Um, and well, I realize I'm going into much more detail than I need to, um, but no, like yeah, that's kind of how I started playing music. Of course, we had a piano in the home. I didn't really start piano lessons very seriously. I may have taken a few when I was younger. Um, However, um, the best lesson that I ever got in on the piano was when my mom just showed me like kind of three basic major chords, and I kind of picked those up and I started improvising melodies on top of it. Um, So then, when I would have been like 6 or 7, somehow I got access to a tape recorder and cassette tapes, and I started, taping my own, weird compositions, me playing the piano, just or noises, that sort of thing. That was kind of my first exposure to recording music, and it all kind of went from there. I started experimenting with sort of rudimentary multi-track techniques. I would get like two cassette boom boxes right next to each other and record something onto a tape, play it back, record on the other one, and improvise something over top of it, and just keep flipping it back and forth. And of course, your audio quality would reduce with each cycle. It's kind of a bit of generation loss. But yeah, that was my first exposure to kind of traditional multi-track recording. Um, I was always very interested in the idea of pitching, pitch shifting sound. For some reason, I was really interested in like making just chipmunking, vocals or making it deep or that sort of thing. Um, I don't know why. That's kind of what got me interested in reel-to-reel tape recorders. Like back when I was 8, I really wanted a reel-to-reel tape recorder because I heard that you could do some fun sort of experimental stuff with it. Yeah, like I said, I was raised with classical. I guess there was something that led me to start seeking out more and more abstract and experimental sides of classical. So that led to me being introduced to people like John Cage, Stockhausen, and the like. Eventually, I discovered electronic music, and that kind of opened the floodgates for me. And I had a crappy old computer. I had a copy of Audacity, and then I recorded an album probably when I was like 11 with this synth right here, which is a gift from my best friend. It is the Yamaha Portasound PSS 270. It sounds absolutely terrible. You know, I want to say it's mid 80s, but don't quote me on that. It's got a lot of, just very cheesy FM style sounds on it. But yeah, like I recorded just a very crude album on that with Audacity. Of course, I didn't have a metronome, and the latency was absolutely terrible. So I'm always, you can hear me, losing the tempo and then trying to catch up and compensate with other instruments. It's an absolute mess. I've thought about posting it somewhere, but I don't want to tarnish my reputation. Yeah, but then after that, my parents gifted me a MIDI keyboard and old copy of Ableton Live Intro. Trying to think what version that would have been. It would have been like 8 or something. I probably got that back in 2011, 2012. And so that got me into, making music digitally. So, that made it a lot easier on me, and I was able to do a lot more interesting things with it, although it also opened the doors to Ableton Live had a lot of like stock loops and that sort of thing. So a lot of my early stuff was leaning heavily on the crutch of all those stock sounds. I actually have recently I uploaded a bunch of demos that I produced as a kid. Well, I guess I should back up and say I don't know how many albums I did like that. Just using Ableton Live Intro. I maybe did 4 or 5 actually in a very quick span of time, kind of as I was learning the software. And once I kind of hit that plateau of, all right, you know the basics of the program, I kind of had I fell into a real rut. I wasn't able to finish songs. It took me a long time to know, like it was in 2016 when I was actually able to kind of pick back up on it. So I was out of it for a long time. But in that time, let's see here. I'm going to shrink this down so you can see. Okay, there we go. This is my Bandcamp page. And the other day I uploaded a bunch of these. These are uncompleted, unfinished tracks and sound ideas that from that period, from like 2012 to 2015. This is a more recent photo of me. It's probably like in 2016 or so. But I like the photo. So it's up there. Anyway, it has a lot of... Let me see if I can turn up the volume a little bit and get some... You should be able to hear that. yeah, I did a lot of stuff during that time, but none of it was finished. This is just a bunch of unfinished. Almost all of them are like 8-bar loops. Once again, heavily featuring stock loops and samples from Ableton. All the VSTs are free, and I was very dissatisfied with my creative progress and output. And so anyway, there's just a bunch of just bizarre music in here that never got finished. I quite like this one. Anyway, those are up on my Bandcamp, as I said. Anyway, after that time, I started putting out work. Actually, I think what got me into back into making music again was I watched what's his name? Why can I not think of it? I watched The Social Network. David Fincher. David Fincher's Social Network. And that had the soundtrack by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. It was their first soundtrack, first of many working with David Fincher, and then also I think they worked with Ken Burns on his documentary about the Vietnam War, and that inspired me quite a bit. And so I made this track right here called "When Systems Fail." Am I getting a ton of echo? Oh gosh, just a second. Because I realize I'm allowing system audio, but I think I also have monitor on. Oh no. Well, that's embarrassing. That should be better. Well, that sucks. Sorry about that. Once again, I'm very new to the whole streaming thing. But yeah, it's this track called "When Systems Fail," which was very heavily inspired by some of Trent and Atticus's work on that film, and that kind of bolstered my confidence to keep making music. And then that led me to create the bulk of my output during that time, which was 2016 to 2017, under the Alphabet Pi moniker. A lot of that was more beat-centered, a lot more rhythmic than what I do now. So then what happened was this project, Hexatarn. If you don't know about Dungeon Synth, Dungeon Synth is this very odd genre of music that has its roots in black metal. And these black metal artists would record these kind of symphonic orchestral interludes for their tracks, sort of intros, I believe. They'd play them on these really crappy old, like 80s, 90s synthesizers, and they just had this very distinct vibe to them. And then one of the I need to brush up on my black metal history. You shouldn't be listening to me about this. But then the one of the lead members of the black metal band Burzum killed a man in another band, and he went to jail. And when he's making YouTube videos now. He's like vlogging. It's really weird. His name is Varg. I'm just gonna. Oops. Yeah, first person. He's a really, really odd guy. Anyway, when he was in prison, yeah, he fatally stabbed Mayhem guitarist Euronymous during an altercation at the latter's apartment. He was arrested and convicted of first-degree murder, in addition to his conviction for the unrelated arson, because they were burning churches at the time. Anyway, so he went to prison, and while he was in prison, he he kept making music. The only instruments he had access to were cheap synthesizer and a crappy like 4-track tape recorder, if I remember correctly. And so he essentially just went full medieval with these releases. He just made this very atmospheric, sparse, wintry, symphonic medieval like ambient music. It's very, once again, it's very niche. Anyway, that was the basis of the genre that is known as dungeon synth, which is still kicking to this day. It's a very niche thing. I was introduced to it by a director that I've been working with. He's making a fantasy film that I'm supposed to score, and he introduced me to the genre to maybe give me some inspiration and show me some of the sounds that he liked, and that got me into it. And so I kind of started fooling around with that, and I really liked the vibe of it. And what happens with me is, when I become kind of inspired by something, I really want to get involved with it. And so I decided, okay, what would be the best way for me to start doing work in this genre? And I wanted to do things kind of old school. I wanted to be recording with things like 4-tracks, old synths, that sort of thing. So that led to me getting my first 4-track tape recorder. So I got it's down here. It's the Tascam Portastudio 424 Mark II, I believe. I think that's what it is. And then very quickly after that, I got the Portastudio 414, which is a little bit smaller. And I recorded bulk of this album right here in like 2018, autumn of 2018, which was when I began work on Milk. It's when I started working on Milk. I realized, hey, I'm getting these 4-track tape recorders. That reminds me of some of that, Instagram stuff that I've been seeing around. I think I'd been aware of Heinbach prior to that. I'd watched some of his videos. I'd also been listening to a lot of Grouper at the time. So I was familiar with the concept of things like tape loops, that sort of thing. And so that led to me making my first tape loops and recording them. In fact, Milk was the very first tape loop that I ever recorded. I still have it. It's down there somewhere. Anyway, yeah, it's the first tape loop that I recorded, and I just kind of fell in love with it. One of the main reasons being that I hadn't really had a good way to perform music in the past. I mean, I can play the piano, but I don't really compose strictly piano pieces. Prior to that, I'd been making kind of synth pop, that sort of thing. And so, I don't know, it was just very kind of freeing to realize, hey, I could perform a 4-track tape loop. I found that to be really exciting. So that's kind of what got me into working more seriously with loops. I built up a collection of loops, and that's essentially what ended up on this album. And so, yeah, that's essentially how I got to where I am today. taking music a little bit more seriously. Um, Along the way, I've done other things. I've had a little bit of a vaporwave side project. I don't take it super seriously. Um, it's just more sort of a downtime sort of thing. You don't need to think too much about what you're doing with most of it. I also have done a whole mashup EP, which I really do not recommend you check out in the slightest. It's no good. But that's one of the reasons why it's out there, is because I think that's why I had such a hard time making music when I was during this period here. It's because I had this expectation that everything I made I was going to be happy with, and when I wasn't, I became quite dissatisfied with my output, and that led to me, essentially quitting music for a very long time, or at least not taking it as seriously as I should have. And but recently I've been really trying to remind myself that how to put this. I wrote it down somewhere. In fact, I think it's here in my album notes. I'll just read my something that has greatly helped me is accepting the parts of my output I'm less proud of. Self-acceptance breeds confidence, which in turn breeds better output. And so, yeah, it's been important. It's been a big step for me to acknowledge, of course, I do make crappy work, Not everything that I produce is pure gold, and I shouldn't expect it to. But that doesn't mean that the crap that I make isn't worthy of my acceptance, because it came from me. It's part of me, and if I want to make progress as a musician, or in essentially any aspect of my life where I'm trying to seek out self-improvement, it's important for me to acknowledge and accept my mistakes, and so that's what's led me to putting out as much work as I do, because if I sit on something for too long, I sometimes just tend to get ashamed of it, really easily. I think that happens to a lot of people. And so that's why I've put out all of my old mashups, all of my old demos, because it does hold a certain value, if only sentimental, and a lot of it is just for my own sake. I don't expect many people to get a ton of enjoyment out of it, but like I said, it's all about me accepting what I do, the good and the bad. Anyway, that was kind of a long-winded answer. Yeah, somebody says got some echo. Yeah, I don't think I've got that anymore. I think I fixed that. Once again, sorry about that. So yeah. That was a long answer, sorry. While I'm thinking about it, I'm going to pull out my old the tape loop that I was talking about. Just a second. Just a moment. Come on. Yeah, so here it is. It's Milk. I feel like this was the first tape loop I made. It's definitely the first that I recorded. I don't know if it was the first that I made. It's an old Randy Travis album. That's what I recorded it on. You can still read the track list on it. Randy Travis, Storms of Life. I remember I was so proud of it. The first time I put it in and it worked, it looped. That made me very happy. It was originally, it was recorded on the Yamaha TG33, which is sitting right off screen over here, which I've been using quite a bit recently, actually. Yeah, I quite like its sound. I used it almost entirely on my most recent track, Fog Surrogate. Just has a really fun, not really cheap. It's kind of crisp. It's got a crisp sound to it. It also has a lot of variability. You have a little wheel, and it'll mix between different sounds within each patch. Like each preset is made up of like 4 different sounds. Then you have a little wheel, a little toggle that you can use to kind of mix in between them. So it means that I can create very kind of emotive, moving soundscapes. Get some nice modulation in there pretty easily. So no, yeah, that's what I recorded Milk on, or with, as well as the. I think I also used this one right here, which I said I recorded my very, very, very first album when I was like 11 or 12 on. It's funny because it's a piece of crap, but it has been with me as long as I have been making music, and I'm probably going to continue working with it. So no, it's been an incredibly valuable piece of gear, at least from a sentimental, personal perspective. Yeah, it's quite cute, quite nice. Makes some weird sounds. As I said, I've been debating putting up that first album on my Bandcamp. I think the only thing that the only reason I've been holding back on it is that I don't really have album art for it, and I'm not really sure what I'd like to do for it. I've thought about doing a little illustration of me at my computer desk when I was like 11 making it, but I don't know. I don't know if I really want to do that. Figure something out. This place is kind of a mess at the moment. Yeah, I appreciate the question. I know I kind of went overboard on answering it, but I appreciate it. It's nice hearing a little bit of a response. If anybody else has any questions or just wants to stop in or say hi, I would appreciate it. So yeah, if some of you weren't here at the beginning, this is just sort of a test stream. I'm hoping to do more with this format going forward. What I'd like to do is to use it for things like live performances, specifically of piano. I'd like to start doing kind of like some ambient live piano streams, perhaps with the Mono Norns, doing like some effects. It's kind of my intention with this whole live stream of consciousness thing. It's all going to be improvised, completely off the cuff stream of consciousness. Going to be very very relaxed. I'd like to do it in the morning. I'll have like a cup of coffee and just sit down and do it. I really wish I could have like a piano down here, like back there, but this isn't my house, so it's not really happening anytime soon. But yeah, like I thought about maybe trying to do a stream like that tomorrow morning, but I don't know. Don't know how long it might take me to get something like that set up. Alrighty. Yeah, everything is a little bit of a mess. I know that you can't really see it right now. Oh, that speaker sounds terrible. I don't know if you can hear it. Wonder if maybe it's running out of batteries. Because I have the volume at max, but it isn't really doing anything. Ugh, it's disgusting. Yeah, this thing is probably eating through the batteries quite quickly. But yeah, no, like I said, I don't really have a plan for this stream. I don't know how much longer I'll keep at it. Just because I don't want to ramble on too long, annoying everybody. But no, I just wanted to test the capabilities of the platform, give it a try. And once again, sorry about that echo earlier. I think I figured it out. Oh, somebody says, I found you looking at some Norns and piano or Casio videos. Lovely music. Thank you very much. Yeah, I know I haven't done any proper performance videos recently. To be honest, I've kind of been a little down in the dumps. Plus, since the release of some of my last projects, I've just been trying to take it a little bit easier. You know, I pushed myself pretty hard for the last couple of projects, and then I had just a second. Oh. I'm a pro streamer. Whoa. So I had my oh, and I see you also get to observe my desktop. Need to figure something out about that. I saw this on a Vinesauce stream the other night. I quite like it. Anyway, yeah, I had a pretty significant deadline for this track here, Fog Surrogate, which is being released sometime, and it's going to be packaged with like a book of this guy's visual art. This is not my art. I asked permission, and he allowed me to use essentially the challenge for the track was to create a piece of music to accompany this bit of visual art, and so I did that, and that's going to be coming out. But yeah, like, I really procrastinated that. I was sort of dreading it, and so yeah, I'm just trying to avoid burnout. But no, I do plan on making more performance videos. I really enjoy them. So yeah, that's it'll be in the works. I also did recently start a new job, actually, which is quite exciting. I will be working at a nursery, not for humans, for plants, which I quite prefer, quite preferable to humans in general. So I'm not exactly sure what amount of time I'm going to be able to allot to creative work, but I hope to be able to do some new stuff. With it being spring shortly, it would be really fun to do some outdoors performances. I think that would be really fun. I know I did one of those with the Casio and the Norns. Yeah. Um, I actually recently, I know I made at least 2 videos with it. I picked up the Montreal Assembly Count to 5, and I'd really kind of been coveting these for quite a while. And I got it, and it works great, except that it seems like um, the audio quality on it is kind of sounds almost like bit crushed. I don't know. It maybe I plugged it into the wrong power source, and I have destroyed it. So I've been thinking I need to record some sample audio of it and send it to manufacturer to see what they think, because it doesn't sound great, unfortunately, and I'm just worried that I have damaged it in some way. So yeah, I've wanted to be using this a little bit more, and I think that would be really fun um, in more live performances. But like I said, I haven't really gotten around to figuring out what the issue is with it. So for now, it's just kind of a very, very beautiful, glossy paperweight. I'll get it sorted in due time. Let's see, what else can I ramble about? Dun, 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 dun. Well, let's see. Oh, I've been going for upwards of 45 minutes. That makes me feel accomplished. Oh, sounds like somebody is arriving home from school. I should probably end it because they're going to be tramping through here any second. I'm going to say goodbye. Goodbye.